Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. So our 23-24 season previews continue on today with the Carolina Hurricanes. We have just 5 teams left after Carolina, but regardless, let's get into the Hurricanes just right here, right now. So last season, Carolina obviously had another really great year. In 22-23, they went 52-21-9 for 113 points. They were second in the NHL, and even though they had this great season, it was the same result. They lost in round 3 to the Florida Panthers in a sweep. It's been, if I'm correct, it's 3 out of the 4 years they've lost in the conference finals, or 2 out of the 4 years they've lost in the conference finals. One of the years was just in Game 7 of round 2. So it seems like that's their breaking point, is the conference finals, and they just can't seem to get past it. And honestly, if I'm being for real right now, last year in that conference finals against Florida was probably one of the closest series I've ever watched, genuinely. And honestly, actually no, probably one of the closest sweeps I've ever watched, because during that entire series, the first 2 games were coin flips. Like, the one was a 4 overtime game. The other was also an overtime game. It could have gone either way for either team, and it went in Florida's way. Game 4 was a goal scored with like 4.7 seconds left, or some number like that. And Carolina fought hard in that series. They fought hard. They kept it close. It was a very close 4-game sweep, but they just couldn't get it done. Had they had Andrei Svechnikov on the roster, I think it's very possible they would have made the finals or would have put a much better fight against Florida, but it just wasn't in the cards this year. And it's unfortunate, but that's how it just goes some years, if we're being honest. But regardless, your departures and your arrivals list goes as follows, because they were once again a very eventful team in this past season. Your departures list, you have Calvin DeHaan, Max Pacioretty, Shane Gostisbehere, Ondrej Kase, Derek Stepan, and Jesse Puljujarvi. So Calvin DeHaan, I felt like he was like a third pairing guy, and if not, he just couldn't make the lineup, so it's good that he's gone. Pacioretty was out the entire year, so I don't even know why I mentioned him. Gostisbehere was a deadline acquisition, was a good third pairing guy. Kase, obviously, he was hurt for a lot of the year too, so he's gone. Stepan was like a good depth or fourth line center, but obviously you got young guys like Jack Drury and Vasily Ponomarev coming up into the lineup, so you want to get rid of guys like Stepan. And then Jesse Puljujarvi in there too was also a deadline player. So really, more or less, the only guy that they lost that I would say was a part of their team was, I guess, Calvin DeHaan. The rest of the guys they lost really aren't that big of deals, if we're being honest, because a lot of those guys were either hurt or they were acquired mid-season. So honestly, I would not be worried about any of those things if I'm if I'm a Hurricanes fan. Your arrivals list goes as follows. You have Michael Bunting, Brendan Lemieux, Dmitry Orlov, and Tony DeAngelo. Bunting obviously going to fit in on that second line role probably pretty well. It's very possible Jordan Martinook comes in and takes that slot, because Martinook had a great year last year, a very underrated season. Lemieux, probably a fourth line player who would just fight. That's what I see him being on Carolina. Orlov, I have him listed as a third pairing defenseman, but their defense is just so unbelievably strong that he could very well be a third pairing defenseman. Honestly, you could work with the lines any way you want to. And then as well as that too, DeAngelo returning after a season in Philadelphia, which I thought was very strange and funny. But regardless, that is your arrivals list. And I'll get into the defense in a little bit, but that's the biggest thing I want to talk about. Your offense now goes as follows. These lines are via the Hockey News, so I didn't make these. Don't come at me for these at all. Your lineup is Svechnikov, Aho, and Necas as your first line. Then you got Michael Bunting, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Seth Jarvis as your second line. So, a great top 6. Adding Bunting to that second line. If you want to put Martinook up there, hey, it's not a big deal. You can. But yeah, the first line's great. Hopefully Svech can stay healthy coming playoffs, but honestly, I wouldn't be too worried about that. Kotkaniemi, still developing he's slowly getting better every single season, so definitely a guy I look at there as a positive player, and definitely something that could be good for a few more years to come. Jarvis has become a great player, 100%. But yeah, overall, an amazing top 6. Your bottom 6 goes as follows. You have Jordan Martinook, Jordan Staal, Teuvo Teravainen, Brendan Lemieux, Jack Drury, and Jesper Fast is your fourth line. Then for some extra players, you got Jamison Rees, Vasily Ponomarev, and Stefan Noasen. So great bottom six there too. You got the third line of Martinook, Stahl, Teravainen. Great third line for sure. Stahl, the captain, obviously was re-signed. Fourth line is kind of a young line, but it's kind of not at the same time. You got Fost, Drury, and Lemieux. So Lemieux's going to be a fighter. Drury, I think, could be a good, not like a physical presence, but be a more physical type forward. And then Fost there too, a great secondary scorer. So yeah, they're a really deep team. And then guys like Reese, Ponomarev, and Noasen, I would expect to also get some time there too in the NHL. But they're so deep right now, it's not even funny. And they still got some solid young guys coming up too in the pool. Your defense goes as follows here, and I want to talk about this a lot because I think it's probably the best defense in the league now, if we're being honest. Slavin and Burns is your first pairing. Then you have Brady Shea and Brett Pesce as your second pairing. Then you got Orlov and D'Angelo as your third pairing, and Chatfield and Coghlan as some extra defenders. So I like that. I like that a lot. I love that defense. That is a great blue line for sure. You got Slavin and Burns, amazing first pairing, did wonders last year. Shea and Pesce, and that's why I'm wondering, like, could they trade? Could the acquisition of Orlov mean that they might move Pesce, possibly, or maybe Shea? I'm not entirely too sure, but nonetheless, a great second pairing. Orlov and D'Angelo, that's a good second pairing on any other NHL team, but just because Carolina's so deep, that's a third pairing. D'Angelo's a wonder with me, though, because we'll see how he can do, obviously, with, like the year when he was really good with Carolina was the year when he was paired with Slavin, and he's probably not going to be paired with Slavin this year, so we'll obviously see how that goes for him. And then Chatfield and Coghlan, too, looked solid during points in the season, too, so for sure, they should make an impact as well in the games they play. Goaltending is Anderson and Raanta, and then you got Kochetkov as your third-string goalie, but obviously that's like the goalie triangle. That's going to be the way it goes for probably 3 years. I really wouldn't expect like that to change all too much. Anderson and Raanta, undeniably they're getting older. So Kochetkov, he's developing there, and that's definitely good for sure for Carolina. Your biggest X factor for me is round 3. I'm not worried about this team losing in the first or the second round. I'm worried about that conference finals because it's been 3 straight conference finals, one in 2020, one in 2023, one in 2019, and one in 2007 or something like that, where they've just been swept in the conference finals. So they absolutely need to make another run at it. And hopefully, I think honestly, with the way they played against Florida last year, I feel like this year, no matter who they face up against, I think they really could win in that conference finals. So yeah, I really like Carolina as a good Stanley Cup contending team. Your question is basically that: can they get over the hump? Can they become a Cup contending team? I think they are. I think there's really undisputed questions there. They're definitely a Cup team. It's just, we'll see how they do in the conference finals. And again, that third round against Florida was one of the most competitive sweeps I've ever seen in my life. So, and that's saying a lot. Not really, because I've been watching hockey since I was like 10, and I'm 16. So regardless, your point projections here go as follows. They're via the Hockey News' fantasy guide. You got Aho in 1 with 80, Svechnikov in second with 78, Natchez in third with 74, and then a tie for fourth with Teravainen and Burns each at 60. So not bad there overall. Aho obviously leading the team. Again, you don't have one specific star player leading. It's going to be Aho, Svech, and Natchez as the really close guys there, obviously. Your sleeper or your bust is Pyotr Kochetkov. No surprise there. He's the goalie of the future, but don't jump on Kochetkov just yet. He went 2-6-1 to finish the season, and the Canes have the tandem of Anderson and Raanta back again. Kochetkov is not yet consistent enough to be a reliable number 1 goalie. Yes, Kochetkov has proven that he can do well in the playoffs, but just consistently regular season-wise, I don't think he's there yet. And he hasn't gotten a chance to really either. If we're being honest, yes, he played 9 games last year, but honestly, they just aren't at that, he just isn't at that point yet. Maybe one more year. We'll find out, obviously. But regardless, that is your 23-24 preview for the Carolina Hurricanes. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. Hit that subscribe button down below. I greatly appreciate it. As I mentioned, from Monday to Friday, those are the last season previews for 23-24. We got Montreal, Nashville, Vegas, Arizona, and the Islanders are all the teams we're going to talk about. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.